Thanks for joining us again, all. Coronavirus be damned. I think we will continue basically via FaceTime to continue to try and get episodes out to you. So, Jared and I are on the line. How you going there, mate? Still a little bit disappointed with the Saints, I assume?
Oh, yeah, a little bit disappointed, but that's just the normal, isn't it? That's the par for the course.
I believe America's going off for AFL as well because there's nothing else on.
Yeah, it only took a pandemic to, for the AFL to pick up the interest to pick up
to get it out to the world
anywhere other than Australia. But yeah, I'd imagine there'll be no game in China this year. You'd think.
No, I think they'll skip the game in China. Strangely enough. Well, look, today's episode will be Tucker and Dale versus Evil from 2010. But before we get to that, let's do a bit of a run through of what we've been watching. Jared, what's been on your slate for the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, a couple of random things, mostly pretty good. So after reading and watching Ready Player One, I had this list of movies and stuff together that I wanted to get on top of, get across that I hadn't seen in a while, and War Games came across my path, so I checked that out. Bit of fun, like it's very sort of dated in some ways, but in other ways the computer sort of hacking stuff held up pretty well for the time. I got onto Swamp Thing finally,
the TV show.
I've only checked out the pilot, but I was really impressed. I really liked it. Very sort of horror vibe to it. Some of the effects are really good too, and yeah, it seems like it was a money decision, that it wasn't necessarily the quality of the show. What I've seen so far, I've been pretty happy with. I watched all the way to the end of The Outsider, the first season. I liked it a lot. I think some parts they did better than the book. They made a few changes, added a few characters that actually ended up really kind of wringing some resonance out of it, and yeah, Ben Mendelsohn's fantastic. The woman that plays Holly Gibney, her name escapes me at the moment, but she's fantastic. It's just, definitely worthwhile. If you read the book, even if you didn't read the book and you like Stephen King, it's a definite watch, that one. I got onto Bloodshot, which...
Yeah, how was that?
Yeah, it was okay. Like it was an entertaining enough cinema experience, but I didn't get anything more than I thought I would get. Vin Diesel hasn't converted me. His acting skills haven't. they haven't converted.
I think he's going to need to do a bit to convert you somehow.
It's just, I don't know. It's just pretty flat for a very interesting concept. So I couldn't recommend that you rush out and see it.
Well, can't at the moment.
No, well, yeah, that's right. Well, even when it hits streaming, just ease off until it's on the 99-cent list or something.
I see a lot of this stuff's going to be put on streaming straight away, essentially.
Yeah, I noticed that was happening with a few things.
Well, they said Bloodshot, they said pretty much Frozen. They put Frozen 2 on the other day.
Yeah.
I think they're going to put Onwards on in like 2 weeks.
Yep. They sped up Birds of Prey's on demand release too, Warner Brothers. There's a whole bunch of them going. There was
a bit of minor talk about Wonder Woman turning up.
Yeah.
And that sounds like a stupid idea.
I think it's been canned. I think that talk has been last I heard they sort of said it's not going to streaming.
No, it's a stupid idea. Anyway.
What else did I check out? I watched DC animated one, Batman Hush, which was okay. I think they have a tendency with these famous stories out of comics that they're developing this tendency to change the endings and the twists and mix up characters and things. From that regard, it's good to still be sort of surprised by certain things, but it wasn't great. Just a standard fare, that one. Knives Out. Finally watched that.
Yeah.
Loved it. Loved every minute of it.
Yeah.
Michael Shannon and Don Johnson, they were fantastic. Daniel Craig carrying that accent on for the whole film was outstanding. And the talk now is that they're going back to the well and using him as like the Poirot for like another story for the next one. which would be cool. But yeah, I mean, the mystery element was good, and the acting was excellent, but I mean, I was laughing a lot more than I thought I would be. Like the one where Chris Evans is telling everyone, eat shit, you eat shit. And then they kind of walk out of the room, and in the background you hear Michael Shannon screaming like a lunatic, and he's there going, I will not eat 1 iota of shit. And he's just blowing up. I was in stitches. I thought it was great.
Yeah, it was bloody good.
Don Johnson I can't remember what the line was, but there was one that he said that I had to stop the movie for too, because I was just laughing too much to catch what was going on next. And the only other things I saw were, I got onto 2 fan films, Halloween Night and Friday the 13th Vengeance.
Okay.
And they were lengthy too.
Now, Vengeance is a full-size film. Is that not correct?
Vengeance is 90 minutes long. So Vengeance is the one that's got Steve Dash and CJ Graham, a little cameo from Tom McLaughlin. They get one of the guys from the video game who paid to have a counsellor based on him. They got him as one of the cast members, one of the people in the movie. Yeah, it was all right. The story doesn't really pan out, but CJ Graham plays Elias Voorhees, which is a cool little idea. And Steve Dash is great. I think it was the last thing he ended up doing before he passed away. So he was great in his little role. It tries its best to it drops plenty of Easter eggs that you'll catch. It does quite well with the kills. The special effects are really good for a fan film.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, I mean, it's there's not really any story. It just suffers. Probably the worst thing about it is they just ram so many characters in just for the sake of a Jason sort of kill spree. But yeah, it's worth it. As fan films go, it's definitely sort of in the upper tier for mine. And Halloween Night was another one that had a bit of money behind it. It was that starts with the kind of idea of Loomis's grandson. Same deal. It looked pretty good for a fan film. Obviously had a bit of money behind it. Had a couple of nice parts. It was obviously made by someone who'd seen the original and tried to copy some shots and gets a couple of things right, but same deal. The story's just a bit naff and some of the acting's not quite there, which you understand because these things are just made for the love of it. So, but yeah, if you're a fan of the series, this is probably something worth checking out.
Yeah, I might have to look at those because aren't they on YouTube?
Yeah, they're both on YouTube. So, yep.
Okay. Sweet. Is that everything?
That's it.
All right. I knocked over Friday the 13th 4 through 6. The Town That Dreaded Sundown. The remake, not the original, the remake.
Yep.
Mate, I reassessed that. That is damn good.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Really good. Surprisingly, much better than I originally remember it. I always liked the idea of kind of this meta, the old movie being part of the remake, and the fact that there are characters or people who are involved in the making of the film or their sort of family.
Yeah.
Some of the people I talked to, I thought that stuff was really good. But the stuff that really got me was the killer was just super brutal. It was seriously brutal violence, but they never kind of lingered on it for a long period. It just kind of happened and it happened quickly. Like the death of the girl in the car where it's doing like 360s around the car and he's stabbing her every time, blood's sort of hitting the windows, and the whole sequence involving the trombone is nasty. Extremely nasty. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought they did a fantastic job with it. And I'd highly recommend it. I can't believe it couldn't get on at the cinemas at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think it probably came at a period where not a lot of the horror flicks were getting a good look at the cinemas before Blumhouse really kind of wound them up again, and yeah.
Yeah. I guess the thing too is the original is not a classic. It's not a well-known piece.
No.
Of slasher movie sort of history, so essentially not a lot of people would have known about it other than your die-hard fans. And it's probably another one of these ones was made for peanuts and just sort of slipped onto streaming when they realised they couldn't get it in the cinemas, or it wasn't going to make any money in the cinemas. So, but yeah, really, really worth a look. I really enjoyed it. The only real quibble I had was I just thought the ending was a little bit silly when they finally tell us who did it. it's kind of like we've been down this road before.
Yeah.
You know. But overall, loved it. I watched Power of Grayskull.
Yeah.
Documentary about He-Man. Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was great. And in fact, I was happy they went more into the film.
Yeah, it was good.
Because they spent a lot of time talking about the film.
Yeah, I think it was about 15 to 20 minutes worth on the film, which was good. And seeing that, they actually had some reasonable ideas. But classic canon, like when they're talking about the sword fight, they're like, we had this epic sword fight. And then I get there and nobody's told me that the costume looks like a fucking, the costume is massive and you can barely move in it. And then they tell us that the budget's been shortened and we've got about,
better cut that down.
Yeah, we've got to cut that
out. Yeah, look, don't get me wrong, it wouldn't have been classic cinema.
No.
But I think that there was attempts to make it more, perhaps not necessarily go as close to the He-Man comics or whatever they had, the little mini comics and the TV show, and go a little darker. And I thought Skeletor, the fact that they tried to keep Skeletor quite menacing in that, and I like the fact that Frank Langella was just sitting there saying, we talked at length about what I'd say, and I wasn't interested in saying anything that sounded really stupid.
Yeah.
And those things are, they were obviously trying.
I loved your work,
to do
Frank,
something.
but unfortunately that did happen.
But you know what I mean? Like, I think they started with like 25 million and ended up making it for 12.
Yeah.
Or something like that. So it's a bit like Superman 4, which was, don't get me wrong, Superman 4 was an absolute piece of shit. But it was the same thing. Canon had Superman 4 allegedly budgeted at 25 and cut it in half, essentially. So you can see how these movies went to shit. And look, again, they weren't ever going to be classics, but Canon certainly didn't help them. They basically fucked them up the arse.
Yes.
If you want to put it that way. So, look, it was a really, really good documentary, though. Again, I'm a bit like you, though. I miss Roger Sweet.
Definitely.
He's such a ball bag.
I could have done with could have done with him slinging some mud. And
do you reckon he just didn't get a call about it?
I don't know.
Don't talk to Sweet. He's just an idiot.
Yeah, I don't know whether. I don't know what happened. I don't know whether the way that Toy Masters looked like it was cutting together made him a little wary of getting into this sort of back and forth. I'm not entirely sure, really.
Yeah. I think that may have been it'd be interesting to hear what the filmmakers had said, because maybe, unless he was, I believe he's a fair bit older.
Yeah.
So maybe he wasn't up to it, or he just wasn't interested.
Yeah. Not sure.
But he was in Toys That Made Us, so
yeah.
Couldn't have been that long ago. All right, I watched City on a Hill. The first 4 episodes of City on a Hill, which is on Stan, which has bacon sizzling away nicely. There's a bit of grease in the sizzle though. He's a greasy mongrel. He's snorting coke, and it's he's an FBI agent who's a bit dicey. And, he's sleeping around and he's snorting cocaine, and he's a bit of the old school cop. And the first episode kind of indicates that he's having this conversation with his mate. And the bloke's basically saying because the movie's set in the show's set in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And he's like, there's no more of you sort of blokes, basically. Like his mate sort of saying, you need to sort yourself out because this is no longer. And he kind of gets himself aligned with the new DA about doing some, good, or trying to sort of break open this area of Boston. And look, so far so good. Bacon is excellent in the role, and the show is not too bad so far.
No surprise there. No surprise there. Bacon's always excellent.
I could have told you I was watching anything that Bacon was in, and you're telling me, look, he's perfectly
I bet he nailed it.
Suited to the part.
Yep.
Yeah, he nailed it. But, definitely worth a watch. And finally, I got caught up in the new Netflix documentary series, Tiger King.
Yes, I did hear a bit about this.
Holy shit. I watched the whole thing. Go to woe in a day.
Yep.
It was fucking unbelievable. Crazy doesn't begin to describe it. It's just everything's happening. You've got to see this guy. His name's Joe Exotic.
I'm in.
He's an absolute and utter lunatic. And you should see it. He runs basically a big cat zoo, basically. He's cranking out a huge mullet still, blonde mullet. He makes his own music. It's unbelievable.
Is it exotic?
No, it's like country. It's fucking awful. Yet it's so funny I couldn't look away from it. I need to get his album.
Oh, I'm sure we can dig it up on Amazon Music. You probably have it.
It is. It's a really interesting story as well. It's got obviously the mixture of true crime is in there, but then there's also this whole thing about sort of celebrity, and then there's all this sort of stuff in the background about, or in the foreground for the first couple of episodes about mistreating animals, and and this feud between him and a place called Big Cat Rescue. I mean, it's got everything. I'm not joking. It's just, do yourself a favour and check it out.
Imagine pitching that though.
You will be entertained at a minimum.
Yeah. Yeah, we got this bloke named Joe Exotic. He's got his music. He's feuding with other big cat places. Like, it writes itself, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I think based on what I could tell, they came to do a documentary about him, and then it kind of went in a different direction.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, holy shit, we've just stumbled upon something really, really interesting.
Yep.
So in some capacity, we would have seen something about Joe Exotic, I'm sure, but the documentary went a different way, and they managed to sort of capture it all, which I thought was great. So definitely worth a look. Just perhaps a tad too long. It goes for 7 episodes. Probably could have cut it down to, say, 5, but overall, I was loving it. Like, I was hooked the whole time.
Good stuff.
So definitely check it out. And that was it for me.
Very good.
Oh, the only other thing I've been doing is I've been listening to a podcast called Crime in Sport.
Oh, yeah.
Absolute magic. A couple of comedians basically just ripped they did an episode on Todd Carney.
Oh, really?
An episode on Ben Cousins, yeah.
Yep.
His opening statement about Todd Carney is, as soon as I read some news about this guy, I knew we had to get him on. I was like, yep. But they did a very large episode on Mark Gastineau.
Ah, yes.
That I'm sure you would enjoy.
Oh, yeah, I'll be straight on that.
Interesting character, Mark Gastineau. But that was it for me.
Very good.
And in other news, I'm now sitting on a pile of bog rolls.
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck you, coronavirus.
Yeah,
I got you. Yeah, I believe you're good enough to go around.
Yeah, I'll go to toilet paper someone's house.
Toilet paper house.
People will love me for it though. I'll be like Santa Claus. You walk out the front and you got toilet paper hanging from your tree. You'll be thinking it's Christmas. It's great.
You would. All right, let's take a break. And here is the trailer for 2010's Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Oh, jeez. Whoa, Jesus.
Did you see the way those guys looked at us?
Who wants to go skinny dipping? We got your friend!
They captured Allison!
Oh, it's the pancakes. You hate pancakes. I'm gonna make you something else.
What am I doing here?
Fell into the water, dove in and rescued you. We'll go find your friends. You should relax. Tucker and Dale are on the case.
What is this place?
It's just a cabin. It doesn't mean they're psycho killers.
Then why don't you go in there and talk to them?
All right, maybe I will. I said maybe.
Dale, what are you doing?
I'm taking a crapper halt.
You mind if I help?
He's making her dig her own grave.
There's no rules out here. It's us against them. No! Oh, good. Look, your friends are here. Are you okay? So you're
your friend out there. He must be allergic to bees or something because he was running like a bat out of hell. This is a suicide pact. These kids are coming out here and they're killing themselves all over the woods.
Oh my God, that makes so much sense. The girl that we have, she can maybe explain the whole thing.
You got another one inside?
Yeah, she's in my bedroom. Heads up. Oh, you gotta take the safety off on the side there.
Don't do this. Start being more careful.
Time to die, freak.
Fire! Stop the rope. No, don't use that.
Let's get you down from there.
Wait.
Sorry about that.
This vacation sucks.
Tucker and Dale vs. Evil from 2010, directed by Eli Craig, who's also directed the Netflix film Little Evil. It's produced by Morgan Jurgensen, who produced Fastlane, Albert Kilchak, who has no other credits, Rosemary Milken, who produced Baby Geniuses 2, and Deepak Nayar, who produced Dread. It's written by both Eli Craig and Morgan Jurgensen. It stars Tyler Labine as Dale, Alan Tydak as Tucker, Katrina Bowden as Allison, and Jesse Moss as Chad. The budget was $5 million, and the box office was worldwide was basically $5 million. Now, the film was actually shelved for over 3 years before it was finally released. So that means it was made in 2007? Okay, I'm going to give you my thoughts straight away. I can't understand why a movie like this is shelved for that long.
No.
Considering the quality of it, because it's actually very, very good. I love the fact that it's kind of like a little piss take on slasher films and The Hills Have Eyes and stuff like that. It's quite amusing. It's not belly laugh amusing, but it's just got all these really nice little bits and pieces. And they also throw in a ton of gore just to get your horror fans in. But also, I think they do a really, really good job with the kind of the relationship between Dale and Allison, which is unexpected, in a movie like this.
Yep.
For me, like, the acting's excellent. As I said, there's humorous moments. There's a couple of negatives that I found to be quite sort of large, I guess. I only had a couple of negatives, but the two of them I felt were quite big for me. But overall, a really, really good film. I gave it 3.5.
Yep.
How do you feel?
I was the same, 3.5. Yeah, I remember hearing about this for quite a while, and then when it came out, I was in Melbourne at the time, and I had to seek it out. I couldn't find it at, you couldn't find it at Village or any of those sort of cinemas. So I remember going to a little theatre in Carlton that had like 10 screens, but it was like independent sort of cinema stuff. So I've sat up in a theatre that had a screen about as big as your standard TV now, and about 15 seats, and I was the only one in the theatre.
Right.
And I think it was gone a week later. So that kind of, it's no surprise that it didn't really make a ton of money because it didn't last long. It didn't have a lot of advertising, didn't have a lot. I'm assuming in America it was a similar situation. It didn't have a lot of screens. But I just can't understand it because it's one of those movies that's got something to offer. It's not just your run-of-the-mill stuff. As you said, it's like, obviously the big tick in the box is, this is going to be a piss take on the backwoods slashers and whatever, but we're going to see it from the angle of two good-natured fucking yokels who they think are like the bloody family members from the Sawyer clan or something like that. But they do a really good job in that shift. Like, it starts off and it's shot and looks and sounds just like one of these slashers. And then you get these shifts to Tucker and Dale, and it's kind of amusing. And then you go back to the kids, and the whole tone shifts again. Yeah. And they do a really good job with that kind of perspective thing. I was the same. The couple of negatives that kind of dragged it down were not. There wasn't heaps, but they were present through kind of the whole thing. But yeah, it's highly amusing. Like, just as you said, it's not belly laughs, but it's consistently kind of funny. The relationship between Tucker and Dale is kind of sweet. They're really good friends, and then, as you said, they play it pretty well with Allison coming into the mix, and it's one of those things where as soon as you hear the premise, you think, I want to see this, and for the most part, it holds up its end of the bargain. So, 3.5 for sure for me.
Yeah, definitely. All right, the likes. Just what you said before, the idea of sort of seeing it from these two guys' perspective, and they're slightly different to the backwoods type of hillbillies that they keep sort of saying that they are, like the college kids keep saying that they are, is a really cool sort of way of doing it. It's a little twist on the formula.
Yeah.
It doesn't take it too far outside of things, but it just does enough to put it into a different perspective. And the way they kind of have those sequences where where they're being sort of misconstrued as being scumbags. Like that sequence at the start where the bloke goes, yes, you should go over there and talk to her. Just go on over, say something and start laughing. And, of course, he goes over with a side.
Just whatever you do, smile and laugh. And then that's right, he wanders over with the side.
He asks the question and then just starts going,
what are you guys doing here? And then he just starts giggling. That was awesome.
He's carrying like a giant side. They're just like, oh, shit.
Yeah, even before that, like Dale can't stop looking at the girls, so they drive past in the car, and you see him fucking leering out the window. Kind of. They just, the way that they get this, they really quickly ramp up. You have these couple of little moments that are misconstrued. Then you switch to Tucker and Dale's perspective, and you're like, oh, these are two good guys. But then they keep doing things where the college kids just see a snippet, and it's fucking. Some of them are piss funny. Like it's just pretty consistent with that, and it does a really good job of switching that perspective. And
I think the acting for the most part is pretty good. Everybody gets their sort of character pretty right. Mm-hmm. Certainly, Tucker and Dale are fantastic. Like they're really good performances from both Alan Tudyk and Tyler Labine. I think Alison's actually really good as well, because there's this kind of like innocent sort of sweetness about her that helps to kind of showcase Dale being a really nice sort of guy when he ends up sort of dealing with her. And I think a lot of that relationship is also really sweet. I think they do a really, really good job with that. It also comes with some piss funny moments as well, when he's trying to explain to the cop how you should talk to her. She can put this all to rest. That's if I hadn't have knocked her out with a shovel.
Alan Tudyk is fantastic. Like he's a guy that doesn't get a whole lot of credit, but I mean, for a certain section, like Joss Whedon fans would know him from Firefly, and he was kind of well loved in that role. But he's a guy that doesn't like he flies under the radar a bit, but he's awesome in this. Like he just nails it. Like the bit where he was bitten by the fucking bees was awesome. He keeps trying to, when he fucking cracks the beer and starts pouring it on his head. Was excellent. And I think Tyler Labine was really good as well. Like I
didn't know much about him until I'd seen this.
No, I've seen him sort of bits and pieces, but again, not in a lot of stuff. But I was a big fan of all of them, really, especially because none of the people in there are what you would consider big names.
No,
they did a pretty good job with the casting for the most part. Like,
and
they managed to get really good performances.
The college kids do their job because they're supposed to be kind of dummies who just can't seem to get their shit together about what's going on.
They're all sort of one note. Yeah, but as you said, they're kind of supposed to be.
Yeah, and. Look, the film, another like for me, is that once again the film has this kind of through line running through it that don't judge a book by its cover, basically. That's the whole idea of it. And the whole idea of the relationship between Dale and her is not about what they look like, but what sort of person he is.
Yeah.
And so I think they do a really good job of keeping that there, but then they don't overshadow the exploitative aspects of the film that you're supposed to have. Like if you're a horror fan, you're there for certain things. And you get those, but you also get a little more, and I think that's rare in slasher films, so to speak. Yeah. Because that's kind of what this is, I guess.
That's right. It's sort of, flipping the genre on its head a little bit, but giving it a little bit of depth that you don't usually get in the slasher films. So.
Yeah.
I actually, I forgot a bit the part at the gas station where he wanders out with the scythe. I forgot about Tucker sort of pumping him up before that. Yeah. He's sitting there just before he tells him to smile and laugh. He's there going, well, "You're a good-looking man, more or less, and you got a good heart. That's two things." And then that's like that relationship, that back and forth was fucking piss funny. And how Dale keeps telling everyone, "Oh yeah, Tucker's the one that should." You listen to Tucker; he's the one that talks. And as you'd already mentioned, when Dale does get the chance to talk, he shows why fucking.
Yeah, he shouldn't.
Talking about knocking the bird out and
and then that whole sequence.
I really liked that back and forth.
Yeah, the whole sequence ends with him going, "Yeah, the ladies don't like me; they hate my face." Before he walks off. All right.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And I think the opening gas station stuff kind of it just helps to set that scene that they are sort of misrepresenting him somewhat. And then we have the campfire tale where they kind of sort of give you a light reason why they should be worried about this. Same sort of thing happened 20 years ago. The hillbillies came along and killed everyone. Classic kind of little setup, just to give you an understanding.
We already had Tucker and Dale sort of running into the crazy Ralph type, the sheriff talking about the cabin and nothing would happen up here or whatever. So you had all these. They ticked all those boxes early. The backstory, the gas station stuff had everything. It had the fucking weird looking little kid. It had the people sitting on the front step gibbering. It was. I thought all that setup stuff was really good.
Yeah, they opened strongly. I love that sequence where after they've actually got hold of Alison after she's hit her head, and they take her, they get her out of the water and everything like that, and then she wakes up in the morning and they shoot it from outside the cabin looking in and her looking out, and then you see the door open and there's it's kind of in shadow and there's it's almost like this fog and he comes wandering in. He looks like a zombie or something, and then she goes and he goes, "Oh, you don't like pancakes? Oh shit." He runs on, he comes back with eggs and bacon. I thought that was that really
was great. Funny. I also liked it too when they're initially when all that stuff, when she falls into the water and they're sitting there, they're dragging her in, and then they say that again, this perspective thing is great because you see them saying, "Oh, we've got to save her" or whatever, and then you see it from the college kid's perspective, and fucking Tucker's standing up there going, "We've got your friend." They start fucking scooting off in the boat.
And doesn't he start going, "Oh, they were eating your face."
Yeah, one of the college kids says, I think they were eating a face." That stuff is done pretty well throughout. They kind of, I'll go into it a little bit later, but they might go to the well one too many times with that stuff, but all the way through, that stuff is really good. The bloke fucking diving into the wood chipper, I was in stitches. And then you see him kind of, Tucker grabs his legs, and then
is he all right?
See it. Yeah, he's there going, "Are you all right?" And then other people see it, and all you can see is him screaming and holding onto the two legs like he's just jammed the bloke in there. They do that pretty consistently well throughout the movie. I was laughing at most of them. Another one of my favourites was Tucker when he sawed the bee's nest.
And he's running around like Leatherface. Kind of.
Yeah, he does the little Leatherface dance and then comes steaming out with the fucking chainsaw. As I said, they might have done it one too many times, but every time they did it, I was laughing.
Yeah, look, they did it well.
They did a really good job of changing their perspective.
They did it well, but as I agree, I think they did probably go to the well a little bit too long, and it probably has a lot to do with the running time, I think you'll find.
Yeah.
The film is very scant. It probably must be, about 85 minutes?
Yeah, I think it was about 85 probably.
So,
once you cut the credits out, it's about
you're trying
85.
To pad a little. And that were where some of my problems kind of existed. So I love that sequence too, where he says, as you were saying before, when he'd been stung by all the bees and he's cut through it, and that poor kid runs into a bloody tree and all that. And then there's a scene where that's where Dale's going, Tucker can win anybody over. You know, he's a real people person. He's just standing there and he's just covered his head, his head's just like all misshapen and he can't speak properly. It's like...
Yeah, that stuff was good. I did enjoy that. You mentioned it before, but they actually do a really good job with the, like, when they go, knowing this is a comedy, but they have this awareness that it's aimed at people who are familiar with the genre. So when the flashbacks are going on and when the kills happen, the gore is pretty heavy on it. You know, like they don't shy away from doing that sort of stuff. It's not like they tried to make it sort of for a broader audience. I think they did look at horror fans and say, well, this is who it's for, so we're gonna just go with that stuff because that's what you expect to see in these things, you know. So in that regard, I think that's between that and the kind of
there were little Easter eggs to say about horror films.
Yeah, they sort of, between that and those little Easter eggs and the knowledge of the genre, I think it stands pretty well next to something like Cabin in the Woods. It's not as good, but it's definitely another one that I would say you got to check out because
it also had a vibe for me of something like The Final Girls.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
Sort of horror comedy. That went for a PG rate, which I thought was probably a mistake. I think they should have gone full blown. But the films kind of, they have a feel of the same type of thing.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much what this one has over it. Because I really enjoyed The Final Girls as well. But yeah, it, in a sense, because it went for that sort of PG, then you missed a couple of things that you really expect from those films.
Exactly. This is a strange note, but I thought it was a good idea because obviously you're trying to continue to keep the college kids thinking that these guys are crazy. And so there's a sequence where they finally come and see Alison when she's there in the cabin. And the one girl pipes up and says that she's got Stockholm Syndrome, which is where a hostage becomes enamoured with the people who've taken them hostage. I thought that was a cool idea because once you get into the point where they're meeting up with her, she's going to just say, look, they haven't hurt me, there's nothing wrong. Yeah, but then they throw you that in there just to keep... Because that could have... You know, if you didn't have something like that, you could have been sitting there going, well, why would they still be making these poor decisions and doing these stupid things and still believing these guys are bad guys, you know?
That's right. It was a funny little idea. And then
it doesn't last long, but it was a good idea.
Yeah, and that scene again ramps up with, you know, the bloke running in with the fucking the and then he catches fire and the other chick fucking throws something and Dale's there going, don't throw that. Fucking up it goes. Like, I think you're right. I did kind of like that where the two creeping outside start saying, oh, they're drinking tea or something, and then as you said, they convince themselves based on these fucking preconceptions that they have of what's going on and still kind of go with the same approach that they were going to go with.
And the sequence when they sit down to provide their sides of the story, just the look on Alison's face when the bloke goes bloody Burko and starts crapping on about how my mum was killed by hillbillies and all that sort of shit. And then he finishes and she just goes, okay. Thanks for that. I thought that scene was also very funny. Again, weaving the two together.
They kept that little bit of humour just there throughout the whole movie. You never really missed out on a few chuckles. They were always there. So I also really enjoyed too, just after that, when Dale goes to rescue Alison, they had the little nod to Evil Dead with the kind of gearing up sequence. Yeah. That was another example of the kind of Easter eggs you were talking about and knowing who it's aimed at. And
what does she say to him?
It always helps.
What are you doing dressed up like that? And he goes, I don't know, I'm trying to look intimidating. Then he comes over and she goes, thanks for saving me. And he goes, well, it was on my way.
It was kind of funny. He did they managed to get this look about him where it did look semi-intimidating but still had this kind of humorous element to it with the fucking mask and everything. I don't know. It just worked pretty well throughout. They really kind of, without having anything that was sort of super memorable or lines that you'll kind of repeat over and over or whatever, they still managed to have this undercurrent of humour the whole way through.
Yeah. And my last like is actually right at the end. We're at the bowling alley. He tells his hillbilly mate to go over and talk to the ladies, and then all you see in the background is them going, and one of them falling over and then he starts dragging her off.
Nice way to finish it off.
Yeah.
Like, you actually finish it off with one of the actual people that you're supposed to be scared of. Fucking
that guy had like no teeth and shit.
Yeah. Oh, that was good actually.
Any other likes from you?
No, that was it. Pretty much similar with some of the dislikes. That some of the likes were kind of big and carried all the way through. It's one of those ones I hadn't gone back to since I saw it in the cinema. I've had it there on Blu-ray for ages, and for whatever reason, I'd gone to start it a couple of times and never actually watched it again.
Right.
So it was really good to get back into it and kind of it was definitely one worth revisiting.
Definitely. Now, the dislikes. I kind of felt that there was no need for the prologue bit involving him jumping out as the journo and her cameraman kind of go, I guess you'd call it sort of found footage style.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, it wasn't really necessary because it doesn't really fold back.
Yeah.
It's obviously an attempt to kind of have a sequel set up before...
Well, I think...
at the start rather than the end.
It makes sense that you said it was shelved. It looks like they were trying to copy a little bit the Texas Chainsaw remake.
Yeah.
Which was, 2003?
Yeah.
So when they were filming that, it probably wasn't too far past when that was going on. So I don't know. That was one of the ones that didn't quite hit.
Well, for starters, it gave away the major twist, and I know that there wasn't a lot to it, but it gave away that bloke was there. So as soon as you see him, you kind of know who he is. And it didn't then plays into the fact that he kind of twists, and they talk about his mother and all that sort of stuff. And I know you're not deeply trying to hide that, but don't give it away at the start, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, well, that was sort of one of my dislikes, not necessarily the scene, but just flagging that from the start. And even if you didn't have that scene, I think it was pretty clear.
Yeah, because he was kind of over the top.
And that his name was Chad. It's like everything's set up for this guy. It's pretty clear that he's in on it. And he has that little scene early when he's talking to Allison and he's talking about, I can't remember what the line is, but essentially he spells out that you and I are linked in this. And so, it just, I don't know. I'm sort of curious as to why that was the decision that was made as well. I don't really know why.
Yeah, that seemed like a bad choice. And again, I felt like padding. It just felt like
just an extra minute or so
going to add an extra minute in or something for timing purposes. And see, that they were kind of two negatives at the one time. I was saying that the having that bit at the front wasn't necessary, and then flagging him as being the villain immediately, and the character is super over the top. I think they actually could have done with killing him and having someone else as a subordinate being the one, because he stuck out like a sore thumb, you needed him to be the man.
I kind of get why they did it, because it's like, I think, as you said, the message is, don't judge a book by its cover, but there's also this shot at you're the classic fucking frat boy dickhead character in this movie. So there was a purpose to it, like pointing out that no, the real bad guys are the people that are making the judgments and carrying on like assholes, essentially. But
it was a little bit clunky, maybe.
It was a little bit clunky. I mean, I did laugh when they found that newspaper with the fucking hillbilly that looked just like him.
You're half hillbilly too.
It was him just dressed up with the bloody beard and he's kind of leering at the camera when it's taking the photo. Like, that stuff did make me laugh. Perhaps the movie might have benefited a little bit if it wasn't so clear early on.
Yeah, I think so. I think that would have helped it. But again, you're trying to pad out your film a little bit. You may be looking for a few little bits and pieces. Again, it's a nod to another film that we might know.
It's hard to find that balance, I guess. And something like I felt like Cabin in the Woods did it just brilliantly is kind of finding that balance between what you take the piss out of, but then providing enough of the elements that stuff still sort of carries through. Like Cabin in the Woods, that the way that they present the reasons for the slasher kind of being there are really funny and clever. But then when they actually, when the shit hits the fan and all that stuff still plays like a slasher and holds up really well.
Yeah.
Also, so I think that's probably what it missed a little bit, is finding that balance here. So as you said, that was one that it carried all. Every time you saw the bloke, you just knew that he was going to be a part of this somehow. Possibly clumsy might be the right word. Whether it was a big focus or not, I'm not sure.
No. Look, my only other dislike was quite a large one, but it was exactly what you said before. I just feel I went to the well too often. In an effort to try and showcase there's a miscommunication, they're misunderstanding these guys, and they're using it, they're basing it on stereotypes and what they expect of these people, and they're wrong. And all of the set pieces they did were quite funny. Every time they did it. But it felt like the midsection of the film was basically about 40 minutes of the exact same thing. Each time one of them would go out and try and reason with them, and it'd all go to pot, and then a couple of the kids would die. And then, it's the same thing with the, carving, well, they're not here, we'll leave a note. And he carves, we've got your friend. And, like these sorts of things. Yes, they were funny. Yes, they were interesting in the sense of, from a horror fan's perspective, you understood what all that meant. But it was too often. And I think they could have actually spent a little bit more time building Dale and Alison's relationship if they wanted to.
Yeah,
it wouldn't have hurt them.
There's a large chunk of the movie where it's just sort of misunderstanding and one of the kids dies. And in that section, the story is pretty lean. The development of where we're actually going with the story gets kind of lean in the middle there. But yeah, it felt like they probably could have done with one or two less of the college kids and done something like the chainsaw one, but without one of the kids dying at that particular time. Yeah. Like they sneak up on the cabin and then see fucking Tucker steaming out with the chainsaw running around. Yeah. And they piss off and, we end up, I don't know, I felt like if you had to cut one or two of those characters out, you have maybe one less of those sequences, and it probably still works just as well. Yeah. And if you you could have just taken a little bit more time to build the other relationships a little bit more. Yeah. Could have spent that extra 5 or 10 minutes. I mean, it wasn't crying out it wasn't bogged down. Like, at no point was I thinking, geez, this is slow. It wasn't bogged down. No. So take a little more time. Yeah. Yep. It just felt like, the coincidences and whatever that keeps happening, it's going to be really hard to do it without it feeling sort of contrived to an extent. Yeah. But it just felt like perhaps they went just a little bit too far with that. I would have probably got the same amount of laughs had they dropped one of those out. Like the one where the guy jumps into the wood chipper, could we have done without the guy that jumps into the hole and dies? Yeah. Like I think you probably still could have got Dale being surprised and knocking Alison out by accident. Yeah. And they still the cop still finds the bloke in the wood chipper. They still have that same conversation, but you don't have that one guy in the hole or the guy that ran into the tree. Well, those two seem exactly the same. They were exactly alike, so there was no point in having both of them. And we'd already got some gags before where they're going, look, he's making her dig her own grave and all this sort of stuff. Yeah, yeah. Because she was helping him out. Funny. Yeah. Again, that was funny, and you could have still had that sort of close enough to Tucker and the bloke in the wood chipper to probably work that out. Yeah. I think. I mean, even if the movie's 80 minutes because of that, it still works. Exactly. And look, it doesn't matter to me if you give me 80 minutes of tight filmmaking.
rather than 100 minutes of like good stuff, but then there's a slackening portion. And the film didn't have a slackening portion, but it felt like it kind of felt like they felt they needed it. They felt like it could also have been one of those things where they were tossing around a heap of ideas about what to do, and they got a heap of really interesting set pieces they wanted to do, and they just kind of
and maybe just went a couple one or two too many or something like that.
Well, that's my opinion. I think they did go at least one too many.
Yeah, I agree.
One of them out.
I think, as I said, it's going to be a tough balance to have you kind of taking all these coincidences happening, but you've sort of gone into the movie accepting that. Yeah. So we're going to go to a level, but I think perhaps it just went a step over that where you kind of went, oh, yeah, okay, we get that. We get that that's the gag in the film.
Agreed.
But yeah, I'm not going to be too hard on it for that, but it is one of the bigger... It is one of the things that I did notice as we went through it.
Any other dislikes for you? Because I haven't got any others.
No, that was it. Mine were pretty minor, similar to you, but they were things that were kind of felt throughout the runtime.
All right, that is Tucker and Dale versus Evil. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify and Podomatic. Send us an email at thrillme@iinet.net.au. We're on Facebook at Thrill Me Podcast Australia and at Podomatic at thrillme.podomatic.com. We're also on Instagram at Thrill Me Podcast AU. Keep an eye on our Facebook page for further details of our next film coming up. But until then, take it easy and we'll catch up with everyone later. Cheers. Find the podcast at Podomatic or on iTunes. Don't forget to rate and review. Like us on Facebook at Thrill Me Podcast Australia or contact us at thrillme, all one word, all lowercase, at iinet.net.au.